Once I wanted to be a mom, I always looked at ways to get out of my job. The growth happened fairly quickly, just like in the first month, making like $300. Now it's built up enough that it basically runs itself. It gives me the freedom to do content or spend time with my daughter if I want to. I think I really enjoy that flexibility and the freedom of the time I have now.
Welcome to the Curious Corner, where we unravel the stories behind our guests through the lens of curiosity. In this episode, I'm joined by Anne Bagg, a mother, teacher, and content creator who started a side hustle so that she could spend more time with her daughter. Anne, welcome. Thank you for agreeing to come on today. How are you doing?
Good. Nice to see you, Ben.
Likewise. Could you please give a brief intro into who is Anne Bagg and your background?
I'm back as a lot of people. I think it's always a hard question for me to answer because I've done so many things. My actual background is in graphic and communication design. Then I was an au pair for a while, then a preschool teacher, photographer on the side. I now have a business and sell PDFs for teachers, printable downloads, and do content on the side.
Awesome. And how about like your upbringing? Because I know you now live in the States, but you're not originally from there. So
I was born and raised in Germany and came to the States when I was about 24, 25. Good upbringing, had a good family, and of course, like everybody has their ups and downs, and things that happened. But I was born in East Germany, but the wall fell when I was about 4 or 5, so I don't remember a ton of it. But there was definitely some differences between growing up in East versus West Germany. There's some other traits that come with that. But I feel like I had a good upbringing and my parents did a good job.
within that, you obviously mentioned I feel like what was probably quite a bold decision to decide to leave Germany to move to America in your mid-20s. So what was an unexpected challenge that you feel like you personally faced during that time, and how did you overcome?
I had just finished college and had an internship at a event agency in Berlin, but then the financial crisis from America came over to Germany, and there was no way to get a job. So I didn't have a job. I had like a tiny apartment. I didn't have a partner, and I was in my early 20s. And my sister had gone to America and Australia and a couple other places and always loved traveling. And I thought, okay, if I don't go now, I'm never going to do it. Because once you have a family, it's much harder to go to a different country. I was like, okay, I have nothing to lose right now. So I just looked up different ways to get to the States. I definitely wanted to do the States and came across being an au pair. And so I signed up for the program, filled everything out, all the requirements. And when everything was kind of said and done, then I told my parents. I kind of wanted to just go for it and do it. And it was planned for a year and then ended up being a year and a half and met my husband here. And that's how I stayed. That I was nervous. I was nervous in the beginning just because of the language barrier. We do learn English pretty early on in Germany, but it's different having it at school versus actually having to speak it on a daily basis. But I had a super sweet family here in Seattle, 3 little girls. My host parents were only like 10 years older than me, so we were really more like friends than parents for me. And I was on the older side as an au pair. Most au pairs do it when they're like 18, and I was already 24, so I went to college and had all of the experiences already. But it was definitely a little bit of a culture shock in between. Like Germans are more reserved and like for themselves, and Americans are very outgoing. Just like everybody talks to you, everybody comes to you like, how are you doing? And in Germany, people only ask you how you're doing if you know them. So it was definitely a transition, just a little bit of a culture shock, what's different. But then it was weird too once I went back and I was so used to America and how they do things. And then you go back to your own country and you're like, oh, now you're used to the other part and you kind of see the ups and downs of both cultures. I think that was the best part for me of living in 2 different countries for a while. I'm now able to see what's good and bad in those countries and kind of try to get the best of both worlds. It's very beneficial going to another country for a while and just exposing yourself to a different culture and just like learning that there isn't just one way to do things. There's different ways. I think that you don't get that by just traveling for like a week or something, but like living somewhere for a month or a year, you really get to know how people are living and how you can live different too. I think that was probably the best part of going to a different country.
yeah, I think especially when you're young, as you say, going to stay in a different country or just travel and just have those different experiences and culture definitely gives you a broader perspective on the world. But so I think what you're saying is that the biggest challenge for you was more like the cultural shift and just like basically the culture and the people and just getting used to that shift.
Yep.
And then I believe after you were a nanny for a while, you then became a teacher. And I think you were a teacher for 7 or 8 years. And then, as you mentioned, with PDFs and the printables, that you got to a point where you decided to start your own side hustle, which actually I think got to a point then when you, after a few years, you then replaced your teacher income to a point where you're able to leave your teaching job full time, which sounds amazing. So I'm curious to know, what was the aha moment? I.e., do you remember the moment when you realized that you could sell resources online could actually replace your full time job?
I think it started as probably more an accident. I've always looked Once I wanted to be a mom, I always looked at ways to get out of my job. In Germany, you have the first 2 years of your child's life where you can stay home with them and you get paid maternity leave. And in the States, you don't have that. Um, and I really wanted that with my daughter. We couldn't swing it at the time, but I've always looked at ways to, okay, what can I do on the side to maybe at some point be able to stay home with her? And it was more by accident that my school started using a new program, a new curriculum that didn't came with resources. So I just started creating them for my classroom and decided to put them online because if I need them, there's a big chance other people need them too. And then since it was fairly early in that program starting, there was nobody else doing it. So I think I got lucky that I was one of the first ones doing it. And so the growth happened fairly quickly. Just like in the first month, making like $300 was a lot for a teacher. And then building it up over years, like almost doubling my yearly income for a couple years. It took me a while to then leave my job just because it's something it's not a paycheck. So you have to really make the decision, is it stable enough for you to leave your job and then potentially tanking and not working anymore? So I think I waited a little bit longer than I probably needed to just because it's like, it's scary to be self-employed once you have a family and like they're gonna depend on on the money you bring in. But I'm so happy I did the jump and just focus on full time doing it. And now it's built up enough that it basically runs itself because you create the downloads one time and then teachers can download them over and over and over again. I could work more on it to make more, but I'm okay with how it runs right now, and it gives me the freedom to do content or dive into different projects or spend time with my daughter if I want to. Well, last year we went to see my family in Germany for 3 weeks and I could just go. There was nobody I had to tell. I think I really enjoy that flexibility and the freedom of the time I have now.
So where on that timeline then, like you kind of mentioned that the mindset was always trying to make this thing to monetize it, to create the freedom to get away from the 9 to 5 job. But was it that first paycheck in the first month where you realized like, oh, this actually could be the gateway? Or did you just know from the get go? Or
No, it was really more trying it out and see what happens because it was such a new thing for me. Um, I loved my job. Like, I loved being a teacher, and the school was amazing. I loved the boss I had. She was wonderful. And it wasn't really about me wanting to leave my job. It was more wanting more time with my daughter. And so it was always do I leave my job, yes or no? To have more time with her? Do I give up? Because in that time too, while I was building up that side hustle, I also worked my way up within the school of taking on extra positions and then moving from a teacher into an administrator decision, and got offered assistant director and turned it down just because I wanted more time with my daughter. And I had to be full time at that point, and I didn't want to be full time. I think it was more the decision that while I was doing really well at the school, it was not the best environment for Emmy, my daughter. And that was the choice at some point. If it's not the best for her, it's not the best for me anymore. And that was then, okay, is this enough money that I can quit my job? So I was at that point less about needing to leave that 9 to 5 and more, this is what's best for my family right now.
yeah, yeah, I think yeah, what you've achieved is obviously amazing. And, I know there's many people that would love to be in that position and have that freedom. So, but like, it couldn't have always been that easy, like, because, you obviously balancing teaching, you're being a parent to, your very young daughter at the time. Then you're, using the hours you have spare to then grind the side hustle. So, like, the combination of just all those things and then just whatever life throws up in general must have been incredibly demanding. So, for parents who feel that, they'd like to have time to pursue that passion project or side hustle, but don't necessarily feel like they have that time, what would you say to them?
I think you have to make that time. Um, like that, I worked full time and our school was always open. The only time our school closed was between Christmas and New Year's. So we were open summers all the time. So I was either way teaching, had my little toddler, or I was working on the side business. Like we didn't really travel. I didn't do anything else. I basically worked 3 jobs: my teaching job, being a parent, and then the side job. Like lunch breaks, I would work. When she napped, I would work. At night, I would work on it. I think you have to make the decision, do you really want it? And once you do, you have to put in some work up front to then get to a position where I'm now. I didn't know that I'm going to be in this position at some point. So I was just kind of putting in faith and like knowing I know I can work hard. And if I just work on it long enough, it can lead to something. I think it's just believing in yourself. And I think if you also do something that you believe in, I love teaching. And so making the teaching materials was important for me because I know I could help teachers save time. Because if I don't do them and they download them, they have to make them themselves. That means they're having less time with their families and other stuff. So it was also, if not just a money-making thing, it was also a fulfilling thing. And I made the materials also for my own classroom. So I needed them anyways. I think that made it a little bit easier for me to put in those extra hours. I needed to make them anyways. And now I just used them for something else. And again, like a lot of it was maybe luck, serendipity, that I found something that I did anyways and then could monetize. I think you have to just put in a lot of work up front to then later reap the rewards of it, and have to be willing to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you can say like it could be part luck, part serendipity, but at the end of the day, like you saw an opportunity and you went for it and then spent that time, those hours, those evenings, your lunch breaks, executing on that plan and happily to say it paid off. Okay, I want to rotate into another part of your life, which I know now spends a lot of your time, which is the world of content creation. So first of all, have you always been passionate about content creation, or was there a specific moment that you feel sparked your decision to start making content?
I think I've always liked making things. I've always been creative. Like I did photography for a while and I did video editing a little bit in college on the side. But I think I dabbled in it because of like trying different side hustles here and there and knowing that if you want to build something up, you have to have like a social media presence. So I did a little bit of it, but not as much as I do now. And I feel like I did a little bit around the refin stuff for a while. And I think after VCon was for me when I made the decision to dive into it head first full time for a while and just kind of see what happens. Like I told myself I'm going to give myself a year just trying this out and seeing what happens. Just learning new skills. Do I like doing this? Is it something I can do for at least a year and still enjoy it? Or is it too much for me? Do I not like it anymore? Does it feel like and so far I love it. Like I feel like it gives me a lot of freedom to express myself creatively or what I like or who I am. I also like it for the fact that I can kind of document who I am over time and just having a kid and hopefully grandkids one day, knowing that they get to see that one day, like who I was as a person. Is kind of a fun thing too for content creation.
Yeah, I mean, I personally enjoy watching and just like seeing your creative ideas come to life, and then it kind of I don't think I'm naturally creative in the same way that you are, but when I see stuff like that, it makes me push myself to try be more creative and think a bit more outside the box. So I enjoy seeing those concepts, and also I just think like with the content as well, another angle is just like similar to teaching. It's just the impact you can have. Same with like the printables and the online resources, the scale of impact you can now have is just like exponential. Like it's just, there is no limit. Especially with the way like all the algorithms work, if one video takes off and that video is about being accountable, then all of a sudden you've just helped a lot of people, or, not necessarily even helped them, but just like you've planted the seed in their mind that maybe they should be a bit more accountable day to day and not point fingers at other people.
I think that's my part too, why I decided to create content specifically around defense. I mean, I fell in love with the idea and the concept around defense of making positively louder and just helping people. And I feel like we all have our own ways to bring people in. Like being part of defense has given me so much. And I know there's lots of people out there who could really benefit of having a community like this. So if one of my pieces of content brings just one other person in and helps them be part of this, then I am the happiest ever. I think I'm at a part now in my life, having a kid and like getting older is where you want to leave a legacy. I want to know that when I leave this world, that I left it better than I found it. And I think you can either way create something yourself where you do that, if it's a nonprofit or a podcast or something else, or you can find something or somebody who aligns with your values and join them. And I feel like that's what defense is for me, and my content creation around it is I align very much with what they are trying to do and what they're trying to accomplish in the world. And so for me, I decided that's my way of making the world a better place. If it's like you said, like I love hearing that I got to inspire you to make more content because you make amazing podcasts that now help other people. It's these small little moments that we don't always get to see, that somebody all of a sudden feels less afraid to make a piece of content because they saw me just being silly on it. And now they're saying something that somebody else really needed to hear. I feel like it doesn't have to be like the 1 million followers or going viral. It's really about there's that one person that you can influence. That means you left this world better than you found it, just with one. I feel like that's kind of the drive for me to wanting to do it. Besides just like bringing new people in, but also like the people who are already in it. Like if it's making them smile that day when they maybe have a bad day that day, or feeling like they are still connected to the community. There's just so many things to it that's just, I feel like, my way of being part of it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And yeah, as you say, like not even just thinking about the creative side, but actually just like posting content in general. Like whether or not you post content, like that's your own decision, but knowing that there is opportunity potentially that can come from making content, then if you see your friends posting content, then it does definitely give you that kind of accountability to be like, oh, I need to go back and make content again because my friends are doing it and I want to do that. I just haven't been because I've been, yeah.
For me, it's also like content creation is also a little bit of therapy. Like the more you do it, the more you get out of your head. Like I'm usually like an overthinker, and it's just the more you do it, the less you are like, ooh, how do I look on camera? Or how do I sound? Or was that silly? Like the more you do it, it's just like, it's just a piece of content. You're just a person. At the end of the day, like nobody really cares. And I mean that in the best way possible. Like I feel like you get a lot more confident in your own self of like, I'm just doing it for me at the end of the day. This is me growing. This is me watching back the videos now from like months ago, how I acted on camera and how I'm now with somebody. And I feel like there's seeing that personal growth of like, yeah, just like the more you do is like, so what? I made a silly video. Tomorrow there's another one. Like, I think we just overthink so much.
That's so true. Especially like, and like overthinking when you're making the content is one thing, but then also overthinking when it comes to actually uploading it and posting it is, the other side of that. So I'd love to know, what is your relationship with that kind of fear of judgment on posting content being like? How's that evolved from, when you first started, and what helped you get past that initial hurdle?
I think it's funny sometimes when you think there's a piece of content that you really like and it just tanks. And then there's something like, I don't know if I should post that. And that gets the most engagement and people super like it, and it's like, what's happening? Like, it just shows you that sometimes we do overthink and we do think different than other people. And that was maybe something, even though you were critical about it, it was something that other people needed to hear and to see. And I think those moments really help me just post it, especially on social media. It's gone in a day. Like tomorrow, nobody will see it anymore. Tomorrow is the next post up that even in a couple hours, most people won't see it anymore because there's more content that was created and put up. Um, it has definitely gotten easier over time. I think in the beginning, I wanted to make sure that the lighting is correct and that the sound is good and that I look okay. And I'm not saying that I don't, but like now I'm more okay with just making a video in the moment really quick because something came up and being okay what I look like or that the sound isn't perfect or that the lighting is not good. I think you get past that because you also see you want to be real and vulnerable with people. Like every now and then I do post things about like things I'm struggling with because that's part of me too. It's always weird to make that kind of pieces of content, like filming yourself crying. It's a weird thing, but I also feel like when I have posted these moments where I'm going through hard times, they have gotten not the most engagement, but the most messages in the back end of like people reaching out, thank you for doing that. Like I needed to hear that I'm not, it's just that I'm not the only one who has those days or who goes through something like this. And I feel like it shows you that as weird as I feel in the moment, because when I post something that when I'm not even having a good day, it always feels like I'm throwing myself a pity party. And I don't like that because I'm generally a positive person, but even positive people have shitty days and that's just part of it. And I think the same is like just taking videos or posting a picture that's not perfect. That's not perfectly lit or it's just, it's in the moment and it's real life. And I think people start appreciating those things more and more. And you see it on social too, like Instagram, for example, used to be a platform very much picture perfect and like the perfect feed. And a lot of people are really going away from that, going to that authenticity piece. I think also, especially with things like AI, everything can be made perfect within a second now. Like not just Photoshop was one thing for us, like when we were younger. Now it's AI. Everybody looks perfect. There's AI people now that you can use. So I feel like people will appreciate the real, raw, just in the moment moments more than those high, flashy videos.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think you hit the nail on the head with authenticity. And as you said, ironically, the videos where the lighting isn't perfect, the audio isn't perfect, and everything else, those videos will do better than the ones when everything is perfect. How do you typically overcome creative blocks and find inspiration when you feel stuck around making content and what to make next?
I think that's the only part I've never really had to worry about. I think creativity has been something that's always been with me. I think part of it is I have ADHD, which I didn't know until like 2, 3 years ago. Um, but part of ADHD is that you can't block out a lot of things. So that's how I at least see it, that why the general person takes in like, I don't know, 20% of their environment, because the brain is pretty good about blocking the rest out and just getting in the most important information. My brain takes on all, as like, which is super exhausting at times, but it also means when I come up with an idea, I can pull from so much more all the time because my brain has absorbed so much more all the time. That's at least how I feel about it. Um, so the creative part has never really been an issue for me. Like even as a kid, I've always made stuff. If it's collaging, building, clothes, it kind of just pops into my head. Like I have the issue of I have too many ideas and I can't make them. I just don't have the time sometimes or the energy or the skill or something. I have notebooks filled with ideas that just never see the light of day. And I know it's a good problem to have. But I get a lot of ideas because I am online a lot. So I do look at, I'm a very visual person. So I do look at a lot of pictures and videos, and a lot of it is sounds for me too. Like I will hear a song and there's like I can't remember the name of the song or the artist, but I will hear a line in the song and like that triggers an idea or something. So I will usually, if I really have like, if I want to make something, right now ideas just come and I just make them. Whereas I don't really have to because I'm just working for myself. I don't have somebody telling me, okay, we need to push this product or do this thing. Then it might be different, but I have to like think a little bit more about it. So right now it's really just like, I see something like, ooh, let's do that. And then I can just make it. I think that's the fun and the freedom that I have that I'm just working for myself right now.
Yeah, you have full creative freedom, and there's no like guardrails in place, and nothing is a stupid idea. So,
That was the biggest thing for me too. When I did tried other side hustles or like social media things, I always went in it with a plan of like, okay, how do I make money with this? And I think that would create a block on me. Versus this time, I'm like, I'm just going to do this. There's no goal for me. There's no, I don't want a job out of it, or I want to make money with this, or I want this and this out of it. I just want to explore it. Full on creative freedom, no goals whatsoever besides learning new skills, having fun with it. And I guess the only goal is like making something that inspires others to either way join be friends or get creative too, or get out of their comfort zone and just start sharing who they are. But that gives me really the freedom to not overthink or I can't do this or I have to do this. It's like I can really go in the moment, like something come up and I'm just going to do it. I think that's been working for me, which I know is a privilege that I have this. A lot of people, if they start a side hustle, you have to go in with how do I make money with this? Eventually, yes, maybe like because I'm spending a lot of time with this. But right now I feel like I'm giving myself this freedom of exploring it for a while just for the sake of exploring it.
yeah, well, you're definitely already inspiring people. So, the only thing I can say is just keep going. What do you feel like you've learned about yourself by giving yourself permission to fully express your creativity?
Not sure if it's learning about myself. I think it's really more overcoming self doubts sometimes and just getting out of my head. That, like we talked earlier, that it doesn't have to be the perfect lighting. That I always had issues with my voice. That I don't like it. Um, and so just not caring as much about it because it doesn't matter at the end of the day if your message is important. Nobody cares what your voice sounds like. If you make the right piece of content that hits with somebody, it doesn't matter what you look like or what your background looks like. I feel like it was really for me. I'm definitely a recovering perfectionist of just overcoming that. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just do it. Get out of your head. Just do it. Just go, go, go. And don't hold yourself back. There's, of course, days where I do hold myself back and I don't go as much in as I probably should or could. But I feel like it was more less learning about myself because I feel like that's what I did before. When I quit my job in 2021, I really dove into personal development, reading a ton of books, listening to podcasts, starting therapy, and learned a lot about myself. And I think that gave me the freedom now to be who I am and to just explore different things and start overcoming those fears that I learned about myself or like the shortcomings I have, but also be okay with that some of these shortcomings will always be there. And that's okay. Like to accept that I have my good sides and my bad sides and that was part of me. And I always want to grow and I always want to get better. But that doesn't mean I'm going to be perfect at some time. Like it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, as you say, we all have those goods and bad sides. But I think it's great that, you have that time to go on self-discovery phase and really just try to figure out what you want to do because, yeah, like it's such an important part of that. It's very easy to get caught up in the day to day and not have that time for yourself to really just figure out what are your passions and what do you want to do with your life.
I think it's also hard sometimes that when I started the whole self-development journey, I think you can easily dive into just consuming it and like taking it in and learning about yourself, but not actually doing anything about it. And I felt like I was finally ready. And I think that maybe that's why I finally found Be Friends when I found it. I was ready to actually make a change. Before that, I just consumed all the knowledge and all the things and learned about myself, but I didn't do enough about it, I feel like. And now I am. Now I'm on the action part of my journey of self-development. Like, okay, I learned all the things that I can learn. And like, of course, you can always learn more, but like, I've read a million books. I've listened to a million podcasts. And like, at some point, it's enough listening and you actually have to put that into action, what you've learned. Otherwise, it was useless. So I feel like Defense and the community gave me I feel like that space of trying things out, like the content, um, without judgment. I feel like that's what I love about the community.
Obviously, I guess like between teaching and being a parent, you've spent a lot of time with kids. And obviously, I guess you just want your kids to grow up in the best way possible. So, as a parent, and obviously previously as a teacher, what would you tell other parents who want to raise their kids with emotional intelligence?
I think that's the number one thing to do. Like, I don't care about my daughter's grades. I don't. Like, of course, I want her to be successful, but just knowing how our world has changed, grades don't matter at the end of the day. It matters that not just that you are a good person, but that you also believe in yourself and are able to share your feelings. I think that's a big part that I've always been big about social and emotional learning in my classroom and with my daughter. Like, she early on started listening to like kids self-development podcasts and stuff like that. And like, we talk about these things, we talk about our feelings a lot, and I want her to be honest and open, which isn't always easy as a parent to hear that. But I want her to know that she can always come and there's nothing she can say or do that would make me love her less. That emotions are part of our life and she's still young, so like emotional control is still hard for her. I mean, it's hard for some of us adults, let's face it. But that my classroom always used to say, every feeling is okay to feel, but it's important what we do with it. So it's okay to be angry, but we can't hurt somebody because we're angry. And just teaching them that adults have these feelings too. Like, I would say out loud, today I'm frustrated because of this and this, so that kids would see it's not something you grow out of all of a sudden and then you're adult and it's like, it's all good. Like, no, it's not. Like, I'm 39 and I'm still learning. Like, I wish it would be that way. But I think that there is a lot of self-talk that I did in front of the kids in the classroom or in front of my daughter, that they would see that adults struggle with the same things they do. It's just a different level. Like, for them, it's like they dropped their favorite candy. For me, I'm afraid to lose my job. Like, it's different levels, but it's fears. It's all the different emotions, the good, the bad, and everything in between. Yes, I would tell any parent that that's the number one thing to focus on with your kid. Like, if they can't share with you how they're feeling, learning is not going to happen for them. It's just not. Like, if you're afraid to go to school, or if you don't know where your next meal comes from, or you're nervous because your parents are acting weird with each other, like, nothing else is going to go into your brain because you are now in survival mode. You are in constant fear. I feel like if that is not right, if you're not teaching those things to your kiddos, everything else after that just doesn't matter.
People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. In today's fast paced, often transactional world, what do you believe is the key to creating lasting, meaningful connections with people?
Being genuine and authentic you, which I feel like is hard because a lot of us have not learned to be ourselves. I think a lot of my generation is relearning that. You are taught to not be too loud, to not be angry, like, especially like guys are not taught to not show certain like stronger emotions. Um, and I think it's relearning that these emotions are okay and how to deal with them as an adult.
Yeah, I agree. Genuine and being authentic is key.
Which is something you have to learn first to be before you can be it with somebody else. And I think that's the hardest part. That do you really know yourself, what your shortcomings are and what they're not? And are you working on them consistently? And can you show up as yourself? Do you feel comfortable showing up as yourself? And if you're not, maybe that's not the right relationship for you, friendship for you. That's something all of us have to learn too over time, that I think we all had relationships where we kind of changed ourselves to make it work, to fit in, if it's a relationship or a friendship or wherever it is. And as you get older, I feel like you learn that sometimes you have to let those people go because it just never feels right. It always feels like you go against your values and your beliefs because you're not truly yourself. So I feel like learning who you truly are and then being okay with that so that you can show up as yourself, and then the people who are like you can find you. Because if you're constantly trying to fit in, the wrong people will find you. Because you're never showing up as yourself. So I feel like it's really the genuine and authentic part. If you can be true to yourself, then I feel like you are able to have true connections with others.
100%. What are you clear about now that 1 year ago you didn't know?
That I'm okay the way I am. I don't have to change. Like, I can just be me. I don't have to be a certain type. I don't have to be the outgoing person I always felt like I need to be to like fit in or to make things happen for me, because you always see the loud people getting ahead faster. If you truly just are who you are and just keep going with the things you're passionate about, things will happen for you.
Do you feel like, is that mainly like through content, or is that other?
No, that's for me as a person. I feel like for the longest time I tried to fit into friendships, relationships, try to be somebody I'm not. Not like major changes, but I'm more of a quiet and shy person. It's hard for me to like approach new people. Like, yes, if I know somebody, I can have a full on conversation. I can like can talk for hours. But it's really hard for me to approach new people. And I always felt like because of that, I missed a lot of opportunities in life. Not asking for what I wanted or what I needed. And I have learned within the last year that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask for what I want. And it's okay to just be me. That the people who are like me, who like me, will stick around. And the people who are not will move on. And that's okay. That I don't need to be friends with all of them. That it's better to just have a small group of people around you who truly know who you are and believe in you and value you for who you are, versus always feeling like you need to change to fit in. Or if I just would be a little bit more outgoing, if I would just be a little bit louder, then maybe. And just, I think I learned that in the last year, to just being around people within this community who are very similar to me. We're not always the loudest people, who are on the quieter side. And me still just being me, and that's okay. I think the biggest part for me is always that we're so good in this community to not just do we let people be who they are, we celebrate them for it. And I think that's such a huge thing in this community, that really gives you the freedom and like I don't know the right word for it, but just be who you are, because it's okay who you are. You don't have to change.
Yeah, just cheering for others and celebrating other people's wins, and generally just wanting to be kind, generous people and not ask for anything in return, which I feel like is very rare in today's world.
Mhm.
Okay, final question. As a teacher and someone who's had a lasting impact on many, if there was one lesson or key takeaway you'd like people to carry with them in life, what would it be?
Go for it. Just be you and go for it. Like, there's no right or wrong. You just have to try things out and learn from mistakes and failures and the good parts. Don't hold back. Just go for it.
Love it. You have one life. Go for it. Okay. And that is it. So, Anne, thanks for agreeing to come on today and for a thoughtful conversation. For anyone listening, if you want to follow Anne's journey more closely, then the links to her socials and her website will be in the description. Anne, thank you once again for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really fun. I love your podcast.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to follow us, to leave a review, and to connect with us on our socials.